Welcome back to Straight Facts. It's Monday morning. Football has returned. Judge Mo is here with me. Dan Potts is joining me in a few moments' time as well. We've got a brilliant panel this morning as we talk about a potential Bruno Fernandes exit for 90 million. Should United allow that to happen? Did Man United make a mistake by letting Rashford go? That is what the mainstream media is spouting. We're talking Trent Alexander-Arnold. Should he kick a ball for Liverpool again? Because the meltdown continues. And some big transfer news, of course, as well. Cunha demanding an exit from Wolves, and the Ornstein bomb last night about Arsenal's major interest. And this thing did make me cry because I'm a huge fan and I want him at United. Invicta Gyokeres. We're discussing all of that this morning and more. Mo, how are you, mate? You well?
I'm good. Welcome everybody to the Football Terrace. Of course, happy Eid to everyone. Eid Mubarak to everyone that is celebrating the Eid, for all the Muslim community, of course, around the world and in the UK as well. Hit that like button, people. If you're here now, like the video so we don't have to stop every 15 minutes and tell you to like the video. Of course, you know, this is going to be a Arsenal moving series, Terry. You missed out on Marcus Rashford. It's another proof that Man United need realignment. You know, McTominay is doing well. Rashford sending Villa to Wembley. You need realignment, Terry. The club needs realignment.
Do you know what? Like, we'll start off with the Rashford conversation. Look, I feel there's a little bit of. I feel the conversation, and I don't want to offend people. I know some people love Rashford. I'm a big fan. I'm gutted it hasn't worked out. But there is this notion of, oh, look how good he's doing now. We're idiots for letting him go. And I understand that train of thought, but there was clearly a breakdown of relationship between the player. Forget Amorim, because this bad form from Rashford at Man United didn't start the second that Amorim walked through the door. The bad form started, over a year ago? Nearly 2 years ago now. He had that brilliant first season under Ten Hag, but from the back end of that season in 2023 up until he left United, he was poor. And I see all these stats yesterday. He runs more now. He gets more touches, makes more passes, creates more chances. And that's because Rashford's happy again in himself. And sometimes a change is as good as a rest. So I don't necessarily look at the situation and think to myself, we should have kept him. Sometimes somebody has to move on to rediscover themselves from a player perspective. I do see a lot of the, we're just idiots. The relationship broke down. The player was no longer happy at Man United or wasn't able to perform. And that was under a couple of managers. He has this new lease of life. I still don't think he's doing it to get a permanent move to Aston Villa. I think he has his eyes set on a bigger prize, Barcelona, a club of that level, or Bayern Munich maybe, PSG. But I think his performances, his goals, his assists will definitely get those clubs to start looking in his direction. Hopefully that means a bigger transfer fee for Man United. But yeah, I wouldn't call it a mistake. I have to be honest. I'm a big Rashford fan, but I have to look at the past 18 months in a Man United shirt. I can't ignore those performances. I can't ignore the lack of tracking back. I can't ignore the lack of pressing in games. Does that make sense? I can't do that and feel that we're having an integral comp. Do I wish he was doing this at Man United? Yes. Have we replaced him with a better player? No. Those things I agree with. But the idea that we should ignore that 18 months worth of terrible performances and just say we're idiots for letting him go, I think that's a little bit low IQ.
Can I interject here? It's all, to be honest with you, like when I watched Marcus Rashford yesterday, when I saw the performance, all I can remember is one thing is like Bowlers FC. It's the same situation. He's doing it for other club. He's not doing it for your club. So the revisionism is kind of crazy to me. Or like, we should have kept this guy. We should have kept that. But he's not doing it for your club. If you get any money for him, his value kept going down at Man United. He's done it for Man United a couple of seasons ago. He hasn't done it in the last 18 months, as you said. And I'm looking at it. It's good that Man United, now in hindsight, yes, Sancho has not done well after the first 10, 11 games at Chelsea. And it looks like 25 million is a steal now for Man United. I'm looking at Marcus Rashford and Okay, he hasn't done it for Man United. He'll do it for someone else. And I don't think that Aston Villa and Man United at the current moment are on the same level. So I'm looking at Marcus Rashford and I'm thinking he has done the right move for himself and also for Man United, because the more he plays, the better he plays at Aston Villa, the more money Man United will be able to get. And the more money that Man United will be able to invest. People want to, well, let's take Marcus Rashford back. But if you take him back and he repeats an 18 months of bad performances, how much money do you think you can get him? And also, he's on a high wages. So you will have to stick with him because you're not going to put someone with 350K on the bench. It doesn't make any sense.
That's also a big part of it. And I think what football fans sometimes fail to realize, and I think it's because a lot of the younger fans, and I mean this with respect, and you'll learn this as you get older. And I know that sounds condescending, but it's just the truth of the matter. You maybe haven't worked long enough in a job when suddenly your performance goes from being A grade, getting the bonuses, the boss is loving you. You fast forward 2 or 3 years and suddenly you're not an underperformer maybe, but you're not delivering on those same numbers. You're getting, your boss is saying why you're not at the same level anymore. And when you're being honest with yourself, you look at it and go, I've just become a little bit bored with the same surroundings, the same people, the same office walls every week. This is natural. It's not even always an element of you've become lazy or insubordinate. It's just your mind needs to be refreshed. And you may move to a new department. You may have to leave and go to a new company, depending upon the size of the organization. When I worked at Barclays, I was very fortunate that the company was massive, had all these different departments. So you would move to a new sector, and it was like you were brand new again. You didn't know anyone half the time. You had to learn new skills, you had to make relationships with new customers, and it reinvigorated you, and you felt like, I could go again now. And this is what's happened with Rashford. And I will say this. I'm going to do, I know it's not something I push back on quite a lot, but I am going to say to people, I told you so a little bit. The idea that he was, and this is I would say the United fans that I see now praising him. These were the same United fans that were saying he was washed, he was done, he's never going to be back at the top level. I always felt for him a change would be as good as a rest. And I still don't think he's got back to his optimum best yet. I still think there's another level for him to go. He'll find that. But I was just in the end at this point, I don't think he'll find that at Man United, irrespective of the coach, irrespective of the training. I just believe his time in his relationship with Man United is over. And I don't just think it's his fault. I don't just think it's a club's fault. I think it's a time thing. And one club players, they've been a rarity for 40, 50 years. So I'm not going to hold Rashford to a standard that only applies at the elite level to a minute, finite amount of football players that killed it at one club for 10, 12 years and never had to move. How many players actually fit that mold? In reality, very few in the history of our game. So I'm not surprised with how well Rashford is doing, but I absolutely don't think he would have been able to have done that at Manchester United. Potsy, welcome to the show, mate. Thank you for joining us this morning. Viewers, give us your thoughts on Marcus Rashford very quickly, because I want to move on from the Rashford bit. But do you regret Arsenal not getting him now, Potsy?
I think he's done quite well at Aston Villa. I do think there's definite mentality issues there, man. I don't personally believe he is the guy that Arsenal could have needed to take us forward. Don't get me wrong, he probably would have started for us at the moment because we're absolutely short up top. However, I don't look at Rashford and think, yeah, that's that guy that Arsenal need just to get across that line. I think he's done well at Villa, and I think, where Villa are at are very different to where Arsenal are at. Certainly where Man United are at the moment, they're different to where Arsenal and Villa are at. I don't like Marcus Rashford because I don't think he puts in any consistent performances. I've seen him have blips and purple patches for the majority of his career, and people still talk like he's 22, 23 and will one day be that guy. I think he's 27, isn't he? I've seen enough to know that he's got to the level. And if there is a club that can get the best out of him, you'll probably get a player that can get between 10 and 14 goals on the left-hand side. So you've got to try and find the club who can do that. And I don't think it is Manchester United. I don't actually think he'll sign for Villa. I think he'll end up going elsewhere. I think you were saying that to Mo previously, but I agree with you. I don't think he'll stay there. But if Aston Villa wanted him, then I think he clearly feels quite settled there. And Man United, him getting back into the England squad and playing like he is for Villa is only good news for one club, and it's Man United for sure.
No, I agree. Lumen here says, Terry, was Rashford fair to the fans? Yes. And I'm going to keep the same energy with Rashford and Man United as I did with Trent and Liverpool last week. Rashford's performances, I understand, in the moment infuriated all of us because in the heat of those watch-alongs for online fans, in the stadium for fans, whatever it may be, in the pub, at home with your family, wherever you're watching those games, in those moments, you want a player running through brick walls for you. We all want and demand that. But in reality, I think Rashford's still a human being, and every professional can lose drive, oomph, a bit of mojo in any particular role or job that they are in. What's important is that football clubs recognize when players lose this and move them on quickly. At the same time, if Rashford was running through brick walls, but we found someone better and we had a better option and we wanted to move on, the club would drop him like a bad habit. So I'm going to keep the same energy I had with Trent Alexander-Arnold last week. I don't think loyalty should only work one way in football. I think football, I know, and we got a good challenge from Aya last week who said, but we don't love the players like we love the club. We support the club, not the players. So I understand subjectively, as football fans, we only want loyalty to work in one direction. We want the players to be loyal to us. But when we take off our emotional heads, and it's why I push back on a lot of Liverpool fans. I'm sad that Sam's not here to answer this question. So a lot of Liverpool fans last week do this whole, unless you're a Scouser or unless you're a Liverpool fan, you can't tell us how we should or shouldn't feel about one of our academy players doing this to us. And I understand the sentiment behind it. Firstly, I guarantee you those Liverpool fans continue to comment about other clubs all the time. First and foremost, they won't practice what they preach. Secondly, sometimes an outside perspective is really important to help you regulate your emotions in life. Someone that I often ask for parental advice from good friends that are mature, but that are not parents. I like someone who isn't emotionally attached to a child to give me, if it doesn't always work, sometimes I don't agree, but I often go, well, they're not going to answer it emotively. They might have had a bad day with their kids, someone who's a parent, and say something crazy. They might have had a kid who's been sick recently. So actually they're overly emotional and they give you an answer that's not right as well. So I think in life it's important to do that. But yeah, do I think Rashford's been fair to the fans? Yeah, I think he's delivered for us over the best part of a decade. He suffered with the club being run poorly, changing managers, changing styles, training coaching methods, no consistency as an 18, 19, 20-year-old coming through. So do I think Rashford's done well for us? Yes. He's helped us win 2 FA Cups. He's helped us win 2 League Cups. He's helped us win a European trophy. This man has won 5 trophies for us. That is, listen, it doesn't compute with the Scholeses and the Giggs and the Nevilles and the Rooneys and the Rios. But in terms of the history of Manchester United, if you segregate it into eras, outside of the Busby era and the Fergie era, Rashford's been one of the most successful players outside of those 2 eras in our club's history. So has he been fair to the fans? I absolutely think personally that he has. In other news relating to Man United, gents, a big talk over the weekend that Real Madrid are interested in bidding £90 million for Bruno Fernandes. Yeah, I mean, I don't...
Why are you laughing? I don't understand. I don't understand. Why is Dan laughing? Can you explain to me, Dan? I love you, Dan, but why are you laughing?
Okay, let me explain to you why I'm laughing. Bruno Fernandes is one of the most hated footballers by rival fans. Sometimes that can be quite a good thing because you always need one of those guys in your team that everyone hates. But the reason they hate him is because they laugh at some of the absolute shockingly bad antics from the lad. He is not a captain. He is not a leader. Aside from that, £90 million. I don't know how old Bruno is now. Does anyone know how old he is?
29.
So he's
already hit 30?
I think he turned 30 just recently. Yeah.
Okay, so he's 30 years old. So you're paying £90 million for a 30-year-old. No problem if you're Harry Kane and you're guaranteed 30 goals. Bruno is one of the most riskiest players to buy. And let me tell you why. Because his attitude is horrendously bad. We have seen this guy kick off. We've seen this guy throw absolute wobblers. We've seen him throw tantrums. We've seen him cry. We've seen him rant and rave. I think he is one player that if anyone comes anywhere near half of that money, I would snap it up if I'm Man United and sell him. Now, I'm not denying there's quality and there's glimpses of quality, but I don't think there's consistent quality, in my opinion. I think he needs absolutely everything to go his way for it to work for him. And at the moment, he's got a manager that he seems to be trusted in, and the manager clearly trusts in him, and he's starting to pick up his performances individually. But if you believe that £90 million for Bruno Fernandes is going to be a good signing for Real Madrid, who, if you look at their stacked midfield, I don't think that is going to be a good move for anybody whatsoever, other than Manchester United. That is
Can
not
I
a good
push
move
back
for
on
Real
this?
Madrid or Bruno.
Can I push back a little
Go
bit?
for it. I mean, look, if you rate the guy and you think he's going to go and
to
pull
be
up trees
honest
for Real
with you-
Madrid,
to be honest
I'll
with
have
you-
that debate with you all day, mate. Because
I think actually when you said the consistency, I get it for the attitude. I think he's one of the worst captains to be ever in the Premier League. However, in terms of consistency, I actually think that Bruno Fernandes has been one of the most consistent players in the Premier League over the past 3-4 years. In terms of performances on the pitch, rarely would you see him drop a stinker where it's just as bad as, for example, I'm just going to give you an example. Odegaard has had patches, and I'm talking about long patches of bad performances. Bruno Fernandes, you'll see a game here and there. In terms of attitude, maybe. Performance-wise and delivery, Bruno Fernandes has always been one of the best guys at Man United over the past 3-4 years. You can say that the team itself is not good, but Bruno Fernandes has not dropped to the level of Man United. And that is just a show of character and how the guy plays football. When a player like him, when a player like Bruno Fernandes plays in a bad club, normally you would see a massive drop in performances, but he hasn't. He hasn't.
You're going to put in a bid for him, Mo?
The age thing, bro, without our if we have the money,
he's most consistent player in the Premier League.
Absolutely, he would start for us. He would start for you. He would start for you. He's more consistent.
You think he's worth 90 million?
Okay, the problem, I think he's worth 90 million. The problem is the age. But if Real Madrid can guarantee 3-4 years from the guy, or 4 or 5 years from the guy until he's 34, if he keeps himself in shape, he's worth the 90. Because if you look at other players, if you're guaranteed 4 or 5 players from a player that consistently perform for a club that is bad as Man United, he's the only saving grace for Manchester United over the past 3-4 years. There is nobody that performed like him. People just don't like him. And one of the most hated players, and I don't like the guy. Every time I watch the guy, I want to punch the guy in the face. He's annoying. He's not a captain material. He's awful. But in terms of performances, probably not, but only because of the age. And hear me out. The age is a massive thing because it depends on how the club value the players in terms of the length of a contract. Then, because when Man United bought Casemiro for that much money, even though he was old, they looked at the quality of the player, not the age of the player. If Real Madrid want to get him and offer him a 4-year contract, and they talk to him and look at him and say, this guy can give us 4 years, 90 million, he's better than a lot of players in the league. Actually, it's better than a lot of superstars in the league.
Can I just say as well, look, I don't believe the story. I don't believe Real Madrid barely pay money for players anymore. They wait for them to run their contract down, right? So there's part of that. Do I think cashing in 90 million for Bruno? I was watching the United stand, and a lot of their viewers said, look, at 90 million pounds, reinvesting it into the team, a lot said they would do it. I understand that, begrudgingly, I understand that train of thought. Do I think he is as bad a captain as rivals think he is? Not particularly. And that's only because, though, I listen and read and digest more about what his teammates, both at United and internationally, say about him, the relationship they have, the way they talk about him. I feel like if his petulance was something that really upset people in reality, not in the game. We've all seen players kick off and shout at each other in games. We've seen players fight each other at training grounds, all of our football clubs. I don't really take that too seriously. No one says anything overly negative about him. Look how many players have left the club in the last 5 years. I can't think of one story. We've heard the players slag the club off, managers. I don't remember a single person saying, I had to get out. Bruno Fernandes, what a cow son, what a scumbag, what a bastard. So I take that quite seriously, that there isn't a single story about what a bad man he is, what a bad leader he is, how he makes people feel this, that's where the other. The reason why I wouldn't want to lose him is this. He was a player that I put in the Rashford category about a year ago. And that was, maybe it's time for him to go. Maybe he has become synonymous with the toxicity at the club. Whether he was orchestrating it or not, I'm talking from a fan perspective, not internally. His performances weren't too consistent. And I looked at it and thought, maybe it's the right time to cash in. The last 2 to 3 months, as our system is starting to settle, as we're starting to see better, more balanced performances, I'm seeing the very best version of Bruno Fernandes again. The fact that we're looking to go out and buy a lot of kids, I'm not against that strategy. We need some experience. And I feel that getting rid of probably our best and most experienced players may not be the best move at this time. We've seen how Chelsea have struggled with all the talented youngsters, but with no good quality, experienced leaders in their team. There's been this sort of mismatch really in that area. So I want us to be careful. However, if the story's true and Madrid genuinely offer £90 million cash for him, I can understand why the club would look at it and say he's 30 on 250, 300 grand a week. We could go and buy X, Y, and Z for that money and future-proof the next 6, 7, 8 years. I would be annoyed on a personal level, but I understand that train of thought. But the reports today have suggested that Amorim has said to the board, please do not sell him. I need him in the short term
Unless
at
it's
least.
90 million.
Well, even then, I think the story this morning said that he wants him to stay. I think that's because Ruben recognizes as much as he wants to improve the squad, and they know that I think Ruben is an advocate in buying young talent and molding them. You still need experience for them to be wrapped around, and I think the club want to make sure they get that. That
do you remember when I told you, Terry, like months ago, that if Bruno Fernandes is kept in check, you will see the performances of the real Bruno that joined the club in the beginning. And it looks like Ruben Amorim is keeping him in check. He started and he called him out in the press conferences, and he said we need to stop playing these balls. And now he's playing well. Everyone now talks about the attitude, not the performances. I haven't seen anyone tell me that Bruno Fernandes has performed bad. People talk, oh, he's a bad attitude. But we haven't seen this lately, the bad attitude. As you said, and the performances, everyone now is gone. I haven't seen any rival run or any man.
Anyone said he's rubbish. I mean, there's people in the chat saying he's crap. I don't think we've ever said he's rubbish as a footballer.
And there were streams then. Run, get Bruno Fernandes out of the club. Yeah, he's taken us back. He's the only. He's the player
up here, Mo?
What happened though, Mo, is this. Of course, listen, I had the conversations. I'm not going to say I didn't around. Is he someone that needs to now go? Because his form was poor. He wasn't looking great. And I'm not going to deny that. The people, though, that led those streams, that led those arguments, they are the individuals that no Man United fan disliked him on day one. It was when Bruno fanboys, and they're not Man United fans first, they're Bruno fans first. And Pogba haters started using Bruno as a stick to beat Pogba with. That was when a certain sector of Man United fans and Pogba fans turned on Bruno. Because I remember looking at all their tweets and their comments in that first 2 or 3 months when Bruno arrived. Nothing really too negative. It was only when and too many Man United fans lack either the thickness of skin or the intellect to look past trolls online playing players off against each other. I've always viewed football in that way. If we're 3 streamers. If Dan Potts hates, we'll make it about Arsenal, that's his club. If Dan Potts hates Saka and slags him off all the time and uses Martinelli as a tool to beat Saka over the head with, that's a weird analogy, but we're doing it hypothetically. And Mo does it. Mo now hates Martinelli because he's a massive Saka fan. I look at it and think, Mo, you hating Martinelli because Potsy uses him as a stick to beat Saka over the head with, it's a low IQ response to a low IQ opinion. Now, it's hypothetical. These two gentlemen don't have low IQ. It's how do you hate a person or a player because an amoeba, because a fool is using him to slag off a player you love? What you should do is have the intellect to go, hang on. Because I've always said this with the Man United Bruno Pogba debate. If the Pogba fanboys stood in front of their god, Pogba, and said the things about Bruno they did, Paul Pogba would call them pricks and tell them stupid. And that's you in the Arsenal fan base. You know the ones who hate Saka, and there are Arsenal fans that get on him, but they love, say, I don't know, Martinelli, or they love this player. If they stood in front of those guys and said what they said about Saka, they'd get laughed at, right? These little incels would be rushing back to their mum's basement to put on an Andrew Tate video and get out their special sock. 110% they'd be doing this. And I think that's what happened in the Man United fan base. So when Bruno hit the bad form, it was the real first time in 5 years that these fans could go, oh, I can do the I told you so now because he's in real bad form. They weren't real Man United fans, in my opinion, or they were just pushing an agenda. And it was the only time in 5 years where they could be right, if that made sense. And I think they really jumped on it during that point. But yeah, I don't think anyone really thinks Bruno is a bad football player in their heart of hearts. I think objectively,
some people do, but you look at the numbers.
They're wrong.
Consistently, goals and assists are there. But up here, a bit like Rashford, I don't want to go near him personally. £90 million. He wouldn't start for Real Madrid, right? We can agree with that. He wouldn't start for Real Madrid.
Well, if they're going to, I don't think they're going to pay 90 million for him. So no. If they drop 90 million on him, you would suggest that's because they want to start him. That you wouldn't drop 90 million on a player and then not start them. But the comment here says, Terry, having a different opinion ain't trolling you, donut. I didn't say having a difference of opinion was. I'm saying, listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. I'm stating that if you hate Bruno because some nameless faceless account uses him as a tool to beat Pogba over the head with, you are an idiot. If your reason for hating Bruno is not based on anything Bruno has done, it's just because of an argument online that he's better than Pogba or Pogba was better than him. If that's your sole source of hatred, he didn't start the argument. It's like Mo saying Haaland's going to score 50 goals next season, and then City fans hating on Haaland for not doing it. Haaland didn't commit to it. Mo said he'd do it. It's a weird reason to dislike somebody, in my personal opinion, because another man don't like someone. Well, I'm going to fight back the other way. It's proper weird. Be objective about him. Do you know that irony about the Bruno Pogba debate? Is those two as players and as friends very much liked each other, love playing together, and have only ever complimented one another. That's why their fan base is warring. I always felt was weird. I got Ronaldo Messi. I got why those two fan bases warred. But the Bruno Pogba one, they were friends. Very strange. Imagine being a fan of like a band and you like war. Maybe you do it with Oasis because of the brothers' relationship. But you know, most bandmates get on. Imagine the fans like trying to tear the band apart because over which one was better. Would that happen? Does it happen? I don't know. It'd be weird though, right? Same with football teams. Why try and create a divide in your own club to win a personal debate about a play? It's very weird behavior. Low IQ. Low brain capacity argument for me. It really, really is. It really, really is. Are you going to read my reply? Bruno, clearer, Bruno. Come on. That isn't the point. Again, I'm not getting into the debate. It's not the point. It's not the point about who is and who isn't better. Don't hate on one because of the opinion on another. Support both if you're a Man United fan, because they were both excellent players for us. Come on now. No one did it in the 90s. No one was like, fuck Roy Keane because I think Paul Scholes is better. No one did that. So let's not do it now in 2025. No Arsenal fan I knew growing up hated Ian Wright because they thought, I don't know, this midfoot. No one hated Emmanuel Petit because they thought Patrick Vieira was better. No one did that. No one did it ever. Never, ever in the history of football did that happen until this generation. So we're going to push back against it because it's bullshit. Simple and as straightforward as that. Viewers, hit the like and the share button for us, please. We've got a few super chats here. Isn't the point of Rashford and Anthony's loans to get him in the shop window? If you want to sell for a good price, isn't him playing well the best for everyone? Yeah, I mean, Potsy very much alluded to that. Yeah, it is. I think it's a good thing. I see Man United fans, again, doing dumb things. They're like, oh, well, it's just because it's Villa. You can't do it for us. You ain't even that good. It's like, bro, let's just big it up. Every time I see La Liga tweet about Anthony, I retweet the fucking thing. I'm like, anything to create an extra bit of money for us. Yeah. Control the narrative,
you man. That's what they're there for.
Exactly. And you can't ignore the opposition either.
Yeah, but it's not only, but it's not only about him playing against Preston or whatever. It's about him has been playing better for Aston Villa since he moved there than Man United. Like, it's not only about, like, we're not stupid. We're not just commenting because he scored goals against Preston in the cup. Like, just it's not that.
Rashford needed a move, man. Rashford needed a move, and he's got it. So.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Diva. Yeah, no. Bruno, for me, like, it's not about what he can do with his feet. It's what he's got up top, and I think Rashford is exactly the same. I've seen Rashford do it in purple patches. And to be fair, as consistent or as inconsistent as Bruno has been, mentally, I just wouldn't want him at my club.
But he's one of the strongest mentality at Man United, then.
Look, I hear that. He is. I would say this. Like, I've seen Bruno deliver in cup finals. I've seen Bruno deliver in cup runs. I've seen him deliver in European runs all the way up into a final in the Europa League. He wasn't great in the final, to be fair. So I don't think I think he's also disproven. It was a myth that he couldn't deliver or even score or assist in big games. But I think he scores or assists in 50% of the games against what we would consider the top six to be. What we haven't seen with Bruno, and again, I hold him to the same standards as I spoke about Harry Kane recently. I haven't seen him in a title race deliver. So in terms of the level of mentality he has, I think delivering regularly in title races is proof of absolute elite mentality, because even in the cup runs are important, but you can have a quarter final and then it might be 4 weeks until the semi-final, and then it might be 5 weeks until the final. A league title challenge and that run in those last 10 to 12 games, that is intense. You think about, I mean, the title race is over now this season, but if it wasn't, you go into that last 9 games and it's a game at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, with cup matches in between where you've got to maintain a certain level. And there's only a handful of players at a handful of clubs in England that we currently know have that mentality. That's a lot of the City players, and it's a lot of the Liverpool players. Some of the Arsenal players have done well in your title run-ins in the last couple of years. But yeah, we don't know if Bruno Fernandes can do that because he's never been in that situation. So I would have to agree with that due to keeping consistent. Bruno at Real Madrid would be different than Bruno at United. He plays every minute, plays consistently, and is always available, never injured. Not many players can say that. You can say that about, especially that is very true. His availability is astonishing.
Yeah, he's durable, that's for sure. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
He's consistently available. There we go. We'll say that.
No, I agree. Someone here says that why says the injury record alone proves elite mentality. I think one thing it shows, I do think there are a number of players out there that like get a little pain in their leg and take like 3 weeks off. I do think, I remember I think someone said it about Daniel Sturridge, and it's not a dig, just the way they said he was, that he had to feel perfect or he wouldn't play. Where I think Bruno's a kind of footballer that he'll play with a sore knee for 6 months. He'll play with he'll play with a knock, and there are certain players that do that, and there are certain ones that don't. And that's a mentality thing. That's very, very true. Let's get the like buttons up, people. Get that smash if you haven't done so already. Obviously, big news yesterday broke. And I'm not going to lie, gents. I am gutted. As a Man United fan, I'm gutted. But the Ornstein bomber dropped yesterday. The Arsenal are seriously looking at Victor Gyokeres. There's huge possibilities that this could advance, and it is to accelerate. What was your reaction to this news yesterday, Potsy? Because it's the prolific striker you need.
Oh, I'm crossing everything, man. Praying, crossing everything. I want Isak. I still remain by that, but I've accepted that's not happening, and he's unobtainable. This is the one I want though. After that, wanted him for a while, spoken about him for a while. Kind of double news, really. I mean, for an international break, it's not been a bad one for Gooners. We can recuperate, be refreshed. The news has just broke today from Arteta's press conference that Saka is fit. Gyokeres is the guy we want, and Berta's in the door. Yeah, can't really say it's been a bad few days as far as Arsenal concerned. That's how bad it's got. We're now having good days for stuff like that as opposed to winning trophies now, which is very frustrating. But look, Ornstein, I don't know how reliable people think he is. A lot of people tell me he's the oracle and all this stuff. I don't really go down that road personally. I've seen him get a lot wrong. But I don't think he reports on stuff unless it is actually serious interest. The problem I've got with it is the wording of these. We have been in advanced talks and seriously interested in and developing interest in for quite some time, a lot of these players. According to these people, we've already made 12 signings. Osimhen, Isak, Gyokeres and Sesko are all going to be Arsenal players. I mean, how'd you buy 4 strikers? That'd be lovely. I'd take that. So we've got to be careful how we do get excited by this. But certainly the player that we need. I think these 2 bits of news are the sort of news that Arsenal needs, if I'm honest with you. And I don't know if you want to talk on Berta alongside this, Tel, but
yeah, go for it.
For me, it's probably one of the best, or it is the best appointment in the Kroenke's reign. Arsenal have lacked experience at quite a lot of levels. Ownership have never really had the kind of elite experience in football. They've got American sports that they've done well with. Board level has always been full of inexperience. We've seen that with Edu. We've seen that with Jason Ato of the last window. We saw that with Vinay Venkatesham. And now we finally have an experienced person on board. Now, alongside that inexperience, we've had an experienced manager and quite a young squad. So we've been trying to do what we've done with quite a lot of inexperience. And to be fair, I've always given praise off the pitch of what they've done and how they've removed some of the culture and got us back challenging. I think Arsenal deserve credit for that, particularly Mikel Arteta and the team. But what we need now is to get across the line. And this is the sort of appointment that I've been crying out for God knows how long. We need an experienced head and someone who knows what they're doing. And this guy's clearly got a track record of success, achievements alongside Diego Simeone. And some of the players he's brought in have been real gems. Some of them have been real shrewd business. But more importantly, some of the sales have been good as well. And Arsenal have been terrible at selling, absolutely awful. You know, if I was to tell you that Nicolas Anelka is the second highest transfer sale, he left in 1999. That's how bad we've been at selling players. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain is still the best, going to Liverpool, 38 million euros, I think it was. Crazy. So I look at what Berta has done. I look at the track record, picking up players like Rodri, looking at getting players like Julian Alvarez of late, David Villa and Luis Suarez having second stints for Griezmann and Morata and Torres. Obviously, you know, the Rodri deal is the one that stands out, but there's a lot as well of Diego Jota, Mateus Cunha, Vasalco, these sort of shrewd business that gems that no one had really heard of that are now gone since to do very good things in a game. I'm a big fan of this appointment. And if it is a scenario of, you know, taking my biggest concern, I suppose, and I don't like to be negative on here, but a lot of people think I am, so I'll go with it anyway. I've got a big concern about how his relationship will work with Mikel Arteta. That's the big question mark for me. Because this guy isn't coming to muck around. This guy isn't coming in to say, oh, hello, Mikel, what would you like me to do, sir? Okay, let me go and get Sesko for you. There you go. What would you like me to do? He ain't going to do that. He's going to come in and say, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm about. This is how I work. And you're going to have to work alongside me. And I want this man to have the most powerful voice at Arsenal now. It is very important that this guy, Mikel Arteta has had a powerful voice for 5 years. It hasn't won us anything. Let's get this guy in. He's clearly been brought in to take us to that next level. So let's let him do his job. As for Victor Gyokeres, quickly, the reason I like him is because he scores all sorts of goals. He bags. And people will say it's a Farmers League. Well, why is no one else scoring 50 goals in 58 appearances in Portugal then, if it's a Farmers League? Yeah? Why is no one else doing it in the Champions League alongside your club? Why is no one else doing it for country as well as your club and in the Champions League? Oh, he was at Coventry. I actually quite like that. I quite like the fact that we're now looking at Championship players in the Premier League because some of them have been phenomenal. If you look at the Championship players that are being promoted, Adam Wharton, Michael Elise, yeah, the majority of them, to be fair, are coming from Palace. But there's been others like Jack Grealish over the past, that have come from the Championship. I look now and I think, do you know what? Actually, he was killing it at Coventry and he nearly single-handedly got them into the playoff final and to the Premier League. And then he's gone and backed it up in another league by scoring majority of their goals. And again this season. And without the manager that has now been told, without Ruben Amorim, he's terrible. Well, he's still bagging him in. He got a brace 2 nights ago and an assist. So for me, I think this guy can score all types of goals. His ball carrying stats are phenomenal, which is something Kai Havertz can't do. He's brilliant in the box. He's brilliant aerially. He's got both feet that he looks quite good with, scores all types of goals, good with his back to goal, good link-up play. And if I'm honest with you, the goals I'm seeing, I'm liking. So I don't look at him and think, he'll flop over here like Darwin Núñez did, but there is always that risk. But right now, the reason I see it as an ambitious signing is because Arsenal need a killer in the box. And in European football, there's only him, Kane, Osimhen and Isak that are currently doing it other than Haaland, who is unattainable. So we've got to look at those names. And if we can't get Isak, it has to be Victor Gyokeres. And then you go down the list and you go to the Harry Kanes, the Victor Osimhens, if they're obtainable as well. For me, Victor Gyokeres would be superb. 84 million euros, they're saying, is going down again towards 65 million or something, is what I'm hearing. That would be a really good signing for Arsenal. And I hope it happens because Berta excites me. The Gyokeres interest excites me. I just hope it's not waffle, man, because Zubimendi and Gyokeres coming in at Arsenal both start for Arsenal. And if that's true and we get both of those players in, I think it's the start of a very exciting summer. So that's what we're all hoping for as Gooners.
I think it's a new process completely under Berta. The way that Arsenal are linked to players, they're not linked to project players anymore. They're not linked to players that they're going to revive their career. Like we have seen the Sisqo links a little bit die down since the Berta name has come to the surface. And we have seen more of the Isaks. We've seen more of the Gyokeres, the Zubamendis, these guys. And I think this is what Arsenal need. They have a young team and they need the experience. They're 26 to 27, 25 years old. Stop this 21 years old. Project players. Arteta is so obsessed with them over the years. Let me revive someone's career. Let me get this guy and revive their career. And I think this is maybe an indication of how Arsenal will move, that Berta will have the final say. I hope that is the case for Arsenal because, Arteta has been here for 5.5 years. He has revived a lot of players, but not to the level that Arsenal want to win trophies. At the current moment, Arsenal are sitting 5.5 years without actually a major trophy, not even a Carabao Cup. So they need to go to a different direction, and that different direction should be Berta from here on. The problem is I've seen people lately say that this Arsenal process is over. and the project is completely over. We've seen that from the guys at DR Sports yesterday. They're like, I am not sure if people actually mean this or it's just banter. Like, if you look at how Arsenal are moving in the market,
has to be banter.
The problem is they believe it. They believe that the process and the project is done. If Arsenal want to continue in this project and they get a new sporting director, you can genuinely think that Arsenal are moving into a different direction, but it's the same manager, same core of players, the Declan Rices, the Odegaards, the Sakas, the Saliba. The project is not done. Not because if they win next year, anything, right? Are you going to say that the process has failed last year? No, the process continues. The process will stop.
Just quickly, Mo, right? Because I think we're misunderstanding what they mean, or they don't get what they're saying. One of those two things. I think when they say the process is done, it's finished, I think they mean it's time to deliver now. No more patience, no more waiting, no more spending money, no more giving more time, no more that. I think that's what they mean by the process is done. Because there's a lot of Arsenal fans that are still using this. Yeah, but we're in a process. Give us more time. No. Win now. There's no more deliver, no more process. I think that's what they mean when they say process is done. If they believe process is over, Arsenal failed, that's it, we fold the club, then they're talking rubbish. But if they do believe that there's no more time, I kind of agree with them.
Can I stop you? Hold on, Terry. Just give me a second. So let me ask you something then. If he brings in Gyokeres and Berta brings him a left winger and he has injuries and City go on and get like 90 plus points, does that mean, okay, so it's the same situation as this year? Will we have the same conversation again? And say that
we should, because if we're going through a stage where we're blaming injuries again, we haven't done enough in the summer.
Yeah,
that's what I would say.
Do you know, look, the process conversation is interesting. It also reminds me a little bit of what you said at the top of this segment about the language that David Ornstein uses. On David Ornstein, listen, of course he's got stuff wrong. All journalists do, but that isn't because I will defend journalists to a certain degree on transfers because we as fans have created this monster. We demand not even weekly updates. We demand day by day, step by step updates. And Ornstein can speak to Arteta directly today, who says, "Yeah, look, we are seconds away from landing Zubimendi." Ornstein goes, "Great, I'm going to publish that." Later that night in bed, Arteta gets a fucking text from another player that he thinks better than Zubi that says, "I'm coming. I'm going to come now instead." So Arsenal changed direction. Zubimendi gets called off. Ornstein's a fraud. Well, he's not. I'll give you an example. Well, Ornstein's not a fraud. Someone at the club changed their mind. So therefore, the club goes in a different direction. But we have created the language they use. They use very open-ended, buzzwordy language so that they can't be called out and abused online when football clubs don't deliver something or football clubs change their minds. Chelsea did this to a lot of their own journalists in the early stages of Clearlake. They briefed on Jules Koundé that it was done. And essentially when clubs agree a deal for a player, they start this kind of like transfer process of different things that have to happen. And they told the journalists in the hotel lobby on their pre-season, we've got the deal done. We're starting the onboarding process of the player. So the journalists run with the story. And then Jules Koundé hadn't fully agreed and changed his mind. That wasn't the journalist's fault. And I just feel that over the years, I feel like we've created a bit of that monster. So I do get why the language is frustrating. But that's also now moved itself into the way Premier League clubs talk. Because the idea the process is over, well, the process and the project's never over. Because whether you won the league 2 years ago or not, you would still need new players now. So the idea of signing new players and improving your squad never ends. The element that I do agree with, though, is that the process can continue. It doesn't necessarily need Arteta, per se. The idea is this. I keep seeing the whole, what phase is slotting? Well, okay, probably about phase 15. Because FSG started this project in like 2010. You know, when Arteta leaves, a new manager comes in, what I would reject is any Arsenal fan going, phase 1, we start again. No, he's taking over. You're in phase 4 of the way you guys structure it. So the new manager would have a higher expectation on day 1 than Arteta had on day 1 because the circumstance they're inheriting is different. That's my problem with these conversations. And I know it's going to offend people when I say this, but it's just so basic. It's just so annoying. It's just so like elementary on these subject matters. Taking over from Pep at City is not the same as Amorim taking over at Manchester United. The scenarios at the club, the structures, the cultural approach, even the focus on winning versus commerciality as an example. We can't say that when Pep leaves, City will be in the position, unless they're relegated and stripped and financially fucked, right? But you can't say that's the same as when Amorim came in. So the expectations on Amorim day one versus Pep's replacement, I just cannot believe can be the same thing. The same as the person that takes over as the next Luton manager can't have the same expectations on him as Arteta's replacement. The clubs are in different situations, different phases of their cycle. And I do think there's a place for that. The problem is the words annoy people. And the words annoy people. But I don't know what it is.
That is what it is.
But this is my question. So everyone is annoyed by the word process. What word would you rather the club use? Because again, we all demand updates from our club. We want to know what's going on. What language do you want them to use about what they're trying to build? Like genuinely, anyone who moans about the language, what words do you want them to use? And please don't come back with, I just want to hear them say we're going to win. Because they're never going to say it like that. They're never going to articulate it back to you in those terms. So how do you want clubs to speak about what they're trying to build? And when they've made mistakes, how do you want them to address it? Like genuinely tell me. And if any of you think they're going to talk to you like a builder in a pub, you're idiots. These are, most of the time, these are highly educated individuals, right? Who speak the way they speak. They're not going to talk to you like a geezer down the pub. So that's the bit I get frustrated with. I agree that you can't keep kicking the can down the road with Arteta 100%. At the same time, I don't want to hear about still building this squad. Should have been done by now. But it's never going to be done forever. Even if you complete it, win 3 leagues on the bounce, there's going to come a point where the project and the process and the whatever you want to fucking call it needs a revamp. That's the bit that infuriates me, is we've become so focused on the language as opposed to what does your club actually need? Rightly or wrongly, what does it need? And I seen a lot of gooners last night angry about this Gyokeres link. And honestly, boys, I'm reading their messages. Oh, but I have all those goals, like 16 penalties. Why does that matter? It means he's a good penalty taker. Why would you be angry that you're signing an elite penalty taker? I honestly think that half these guys almost want you to foul so they can say they were right. Your fan base, for me, you've got like first.
I don't want to hear about it.
Moment. It's so strange to me. So strange.
I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about it until I see him hold the shirt. We shouldn't be talking about it because he needs to hold the shirt first. Yeah. Otherwise, we shouldn't report about it. We shouldn't talk about it. All this link to all this, like, yeah, but we're not talking about. I don't think people understand how conversations work. Until this moment, like during the season, we didn't know that Liverpool would win the league. We didn't know that Arsenal would lose the league. We didn't know that Man City will be struggling for top 5. But there are conversations about them because there are possibilities.
Yeah.
And unless you're telling me that you believe that Gyokeres will not join Arsenal, we have to converse about it. We have to talk about it because it's a possibility.
And if we
like,
look
for
at
example, I'm gonna call out some of the fans. Newcastle fans, for example, even though I like Newcastle, I'm happy for them. Every time I speak about Isak or Terry or even Dan or anyone, they tell us he's not moving. Don't talk about it. He's not moving. I get it. The board of Newcastle have said he's not moving, right? But at the moment, himself, Isak, said that he wants to play Champions League. And there is a possibility that Newcastle don't make Champions League. That means Isak might push for a move. So that means we have to talk about it. Which club is better for him? Is it Arsenal? Is he going to go to Barcelona?
Yeah. No,
it's the same for Gyokeres.
I totally agree. And look, this here from Jamie says, Terry, there has to be a deadline on a process. Again, that makes sense. What element of that process? So, for instance, and this is where I think a conversation has to be had as opposed to everybody trying to prove themselves right. Because I think there are elements of truth to this. There has to be a validity period on every manager, win, lose, or draw. Has to be. Equally, though, when it comes to your club, well, we should want the project, the process, let's just Google it for a second here. Because I don't trigger people. Other words for project. Let's just find a new word to use, boys. Let's just find a new word. Let's Google it. Let's find a good one. Predict, estimate, count. No, that's not really a good one. What can we have here? Job in hand. Yeah, that's a good one. Let's use job in hand. for your clubs, you want the job in hand to always be to make you the best football team possible in the world. Well, that will never end, will it? That should never end, because football can't work like that. Say Arsenal do build the best team in England. If you don't continue to evolve, and if you don't continue that project and always trying to be the best team, you will eventually go backwards. And in fact, Arsenal did that. You started going backwards in the mid-noughties when you stopped improving your team. So this is where I think a grown-up, educated conversation has to happen, challenge in every direction. I agree, Jamie, that a manager should not be given an infinite amount of time to become successful. I believe there should be a cut-off period. That cut-off period should be the club have found someone they believe to be truly better that can continue in that direction and get you over the line, make you more consistent. But your club should never stop in its process, its project, in its job in hand to try and make you the best team in the world.
That's why the whole wording was just pathetic at the start, in my opinion. That's why people were laughing at it, because everybody goes through whatever you want to call it. You can call it a process, you can call it phases, you can call it what the hell you want, a project, a plan. Everyone's got one of those things. But when we see it with Arsenal, all of a sudden, it was every year. It was like, yeah, but it's only phase 2. It's who has all these phases? Like, no, this is where I'll push back a bit, because I
think everyone does, though. I think everyone does have those phases. But where I agree with you,
we haven't heard it before, though. Tell was my point.
But this is it. But this is where football fans need to. I mentioned it about the transfers. This is where football fans have to agree to what they do and they don't want. If you want to hear from football clubs around what you're trying to do, this is how you're going to be spoken to, because this is how business plans and plans are put into place. This is, you sit down with a really good PT and nutritionist and they're going to teach you how to get into shape. They're going to talk to you about the different phases of the way you're going to train. The language they use will probably not be language you're used to, because it will be within their profession. And we all have this in our day jobs. All of us have a day job where we use certain acronyms or words or phrases that may not be used in a different sector. But what we're asking for as football fans is be more transparent. Tell us what's going on. So people start telling us, and we don't like it because we feel like it's always kicking the can down the road. Now, where I agree with you is there has to be an end goal for us, maybe a manager or a player. Well, he's had 3 seasons as a striker. He isn't scoring enough. I ain't trusting that element anymore. We need someone better. But at the same time, the phase thing or the process element, depending on where your club was when you started that, of course it's going to take time. I don't believe Arsenal could have gone from where you were in 2019 to where you are now, or where you were last season, in 1 or 2 transfer windows. I think it is something that took time to clear out the dead wood, clear out the toxicity, change the culture that you've already praised as an example, start building this squad up. I think those elements take years. What you always get is the examples of, well, Ajax dropped off for 1 year. Look, they're already back at the top. Well, that's because they didn't suffer nearly 20 years of malpractice. Oh, Madrid had 1 bad season. They went out, had a good summer. They're back to winning La Liga. Have they gone through what Man United have they had 12 years of what Man United have just been through? No, never in their modern day history. See, when you make these comparisons, I think we have to compare apples with apples and oranges with oranges. And I just think that where I agree with you, though, and I concur, is you can't just keep kicking that can down the road forever for a manager and or players. But even for the club. So you get to a point where you say, I don't think this project is working. It isn't ever going to make us champions. It isn't ever going to make us get back into the Champions League. We're never going to win the UCL. If you believe that, then you can also kick back against it as well. So I'm not saying you shouldn't challenge these things. I just don't think the language is the issue. It's whether or not you believe in what they're trying to build. Does that make sense? I can look past the language because it's corporate talk from corporate people. The same as when a journalist says personal terms will be no problem. That's just their way of protecting themselves. Like, I know what that means. It means an agent has told a club he's happy with what you'd pay him in salary. Like, in reality, does that make sense? And I don't know. I just feel that the process stuff's just not that important. The language of it is, I think it muddies the waters. I do agree. But sorry, back to you, Potsy.
Some people do get confused by it, though, by saying, oh, well, it's a process. It's a process. Oh, so what happens if Arteta then goes? Oh, well, I don't know. It's awful if he goes. Well, it might not be, because you've just said the process continues. So you then go and find the next manager who then continues it on. And I've always said that. You know, me and Yardman were talking about this, and Yardman said the other day, you know, if Arteta goes, we just kick the Emirates down, make it into flats, and then that's it. The club's done. Like, I don't get this. You know, like, real talk. It's mad.
That's the other side of it, though. I don't think your process ends with Arteta. I think it can go beyond him, and that's how modern day clubs are run. You should not be building the club solely in the image of a manager, that when they leave, it all falls down. I mean, we all saw that the problems that Fergie and Wenger have leaving have created. Now, if every club was built like that, it wouldn't be a problem, because every club would theoretically have a down period after a manager of 5, 10, however many years leaves. But most clubs are now structured, especially in Europe, they're structured so differently. And there's a reason why the Real Madrids and the like have, I'll have to go back and do more research, but especially in my lifetime, it's why I've never had periods like Liverpool and Man United are currently in and Arsenal went through. They never had that. One, they have a financial monopoly that helps, but it's because the head coach is the head coach and the president, people run the football club and the head coach coaches the team that the club builds. That's why those clubs maintain a level of consistency for so long. And that's what I just think football fans have got to get there. But the problem we have as English fans, I think, Potsy, is that we all brought up in a culture of the manager is the figurehead of the club. So you fall in love with the manager because they're the figurehead of your club. You don't, and that's where the one element I used to really, I didn't agree with the wording with Lee Gunner, but I got where he was coming from. The manager is just a paid employee. There has to be an element of that train of thought as well, because you don't have another Wenger in Arteta. Man United don't have a new Fergie in Amorim. I think the clubs are really
support
clear.
the club, not the manager. Basically,
I agree, and the structure has to be more important. The process, I know people hate the words, but I don't know what other words to use. I like those words; they make sense. The club's plan of where they want to be can't live or die on the head coach or manager. It has to supersede them. It has to be better, and it has to be more important than that individual, I think, in the modern day game, if I want to try and get the language right. This year says, Dan, would you consider Berta's time at Madrid a failure? 2 leagues and the Europa in 12 years. Sounds like Arsenal fans don't have patience.
Hey, if you think 2 La Ligas, a Europa League and a Super Cup is failure, then I would say it's success, because they were doing that. What we're seeing at the moment in Arsenal is failure every year. I will say that I think the credit in the bank of Diego Simeone is what's kept him there, because he's definitely, or should be, under pressure if he's not already. He's the highest paid manager, or one of, around. And I certainly think that the pressure's on. They might still win something this year. I don't know. The league is looking pretty close, and etc. But I think they're still in the Copa del Rey as well. So we'll see what happens. But he needs to win a trophy for sure. But Berta's time at Atletico Madrid has not been a failure whatsoever. He's got some misses. If you look at João Felix, for an example, that was a miss. I don't think that was a good hit. But you're going to get that with every single person. The problem we've got in the 31 players that Arteta and Edu have brought in at Arsenal, there's probably only 8 or 9 that you can say hits. The others are pretty shambolic. They've all gone, or they've just not been good enough, sort of thing.
I think as well, when you look at Atletico, what people don't understand is Barcelona and Real Madrid every year spend more on the salary of their players than Atletico Madrid bring in revenue. So there is yes, you can look at those summers where they have spent big money, and it's sort of every 2 to 3 years Atletico spend big. But if you look in the seasons in between that, the spend is much lower than Real Madrid and Barca. And I think they turn over like 500 million a year or so, Atletico. That's what Real Madrid pay in salary to their players. So to be and there is a financial monopoly that exists in La Liga that doesn't in England in terms of the way TV money is split. So to win 2 league titles, be in many races, to get to those Champions League finals, to be as successful as they have been, you have to factor that element in. It's almost like a team who earns about, it's like, imagine Spurs, and I'm talking actually Spurs earn a lot of money now. So you've got to go and find a team that's earning like 400 million a year of revenue in the Premier League. You're probably looking at a team that's sort of it's like Newcastle without their current owners, right? Over the last decade or so, winning a couple of Premier Leagues, winning the Europa League. I don't think you would look at that as failure when they're up against multiple teams that just earn more money than them. I think what they've done has been brilliant. And of course, there's going to be misses, but I think you could find any sport, and this is what people do, don't they? You could find any sporting director in the world at any club with any CV, and you'll find the flops, because everyone signs flops. But it's just the focus that it will get, I suppose. It's just the focus that it gets. This year, Arteta speaking on Bukayo Saka ahead of Fulham. He says Bukayo is ready to go. He really wants it, and he is ready. So it looks like Saka is back for you guys as well.
Yeah, look, I'm kind of
pray for Madrid.
I'm kind of conflicted on this one. I kind of feel like the fans need to actually look at having an opinion rather than being experts. You know, like when Arsenal fans, well, football fans, I should say, not just Arsenal fans, all turn into accountants. Oh, we can't afford him. We can't get him. They've no idea actually how much money is in the bank. I think all they've done now is they've all turned into doctors. So they're like, you can't try to rush back Saka back. Well, look, I've been gone out and said I don't want him rushed back if he's not fully fit. Right? I can't sit there and say, well, the reason you can't is because what happens with these hamstrings is, as if I know what happens to hamstrings. I haven't got a Scooby, guys. Yeah, I'm not a doctor. I haven't got an absolute no idea. I can tell you what Hazard and Owen and all these guys have gone through years ago, but they didn't have this operation, from what I understand. So this operation, people have then said that makes it stronger. It'll be absolutely fine. No one knows, Terry. No one has a clue what Saka is going to be like when he comes back. Now, I wouldn't rush him back. I certainly would. I think the guy's been absolutely flogged, and I blame Mikel Arteta for injuring him. That's what I will say. How you can be bringing him on at 3-0 when you're 3-0 up against Preston and you're bringing him on is just mad to me. Starting him against Bolton in the Carabao Cup. Really? This guy's been playing for God knows how many games. So I do blame him for hamstrings going. However, now that we're getting him back, we have got to look after him. I don't know what Saka's going to be like. I don't know if it's going to be the same Saka. I don't know if it's going to be a Saka that's going to need a few months. I don't know what it's going to be. But what I will say is that if he is fully fit and we trust the fitness staff, that's all you can do is trust them. That's all we've got, to go on. They're saying he's fit, then he has to play against Real Madrid, in my opinion, because this the only chance we've got is a moments player, and he's the only moments player that we have. And you can't tell me, Arsenal should be able to beat Real Madrid without Saka. I would say it's very, very hard with Saka, let alone without him. So for me,
let me tell you something about this. It's very important. The people that don't like Arteta and just want to have something negative about Arteta or the Arsenal Football Club, they keep saying, don't rush him if he gets injured. Number one, Arsenal are not in the title race. So you have to know that the club and the player and the medical staff will do the best for the guy. Fulham game is not as important, right? The league now for Arsenal is not as important. If he's not fit, I am 100% sure the Arsenal will not play him because they aren't in a title race. They aren't going to play him if he's not fit. But people say, if he plays them against Fulham and he gets injured, do you think they're going to play him in a game that Arteta knows, everyone knows it is not important if there is a risk of being injured? Use your brain. I understand. Let me just add this. Let me understand this. Yes. Let me just say this. If Arsenal are neck to neck with Liverpool and they're in a tighter race and Saka's having a little bit of a knock and he plays on it, that happens in every club. It happens at Inter, Real Madrid, Barcelona, everywhere. Right? That is not going to happen for Arsenal. I promise you, they aren't going to rush the guy back for a game that is not as important. And you know it. The problem is these people know that. But they think the club is stupid and they're going to rush him for a game that is not important.
He'll probably be on the bench and he'll probably start getting minutes that way. I think what's really interesting is just, firstly, 1 minute people are saying, don't be attached to paid employees. The next minute it's like, please care about their careers. Well, which is it? Care about the careers or don't care about paid employees? We need to, I'm talking about the comment section here that are doing it. I think there's a bit of a setup here as well. There are some very strange Arsenal fans, I think, are praying that his hamstring goes again so they can slam Arteta, which I can just feel it in the tone of what they're saying. Oh, he's going to ruin him. It's almost like you're willing it to happen. I just don't think he's been back doing physical training since the beginning of January. We all saw the pictures. So you're talking 3 months of rehabilitation that he has had. As you mentioned, the surgery that he had has done certain amounts of work and everything else. The player is also saying how he feels. Is he going to start playing in full 90 minutes from day one? We'll see. I very much doubt that. But I just think that I've never seen a player returning from injury get such a negative reaction from a percentage of their own fans. I find it a little. I considered half those fans slag him off most of the time anyway. It doesn't even make sense. A lot of them don't even rate Saka that highly. The whole thing feels a bit weird to me as an outsider looking in. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But
I think if we were to bring him back and he goes out for the whole of the season and majority of next season, I'll never forgive the club because they clearly have rushed him back and he's not back. But injuries can happen at any point. It's risky whenever. And look, I do feel like there's potential for a lot of the fans to be nervous when he comes back, and I understand why. But if you're saying to me now, Bukayo Saka is 100% fit, Dan, do you play him against Real Madrid? The answer is yes, because he's our best player. I mean, crikey, you've seen, guys, the moment our title challenge went, was on the 21st of December when he went down. Everybody really in the back of their mind went, yeah, they're screwed now. But they didn't want to because they wanted the title race and they wanted it to be exciting. But everyone knew Arsenal weren't winning the league the moment they went down. There was other factors on that, transfer windows, etc. But everybody knew that without Saka, Arsenal were a different side. And we've seen without him what we are. We struggle. And for me, the only chance, if any at all, of beating Real Madrid is a moments. And the deliveries, all of a sudden, the last set piece we scored was the other day. We scored a set piece against Chelsea. That's the first one since December. Now, Saka's been out all that time, and his delivery is so important from set pieces. His crossing, his creativity, his delivery, everything has gone. And as much as I'm a fan of Ethan Nwaneri, 17-year-old kid, we're now putting a hell of a lot of pressure on. So for me, I think we now need to get him. And I hope he's fit, man. I hope he is fit. I pray he is.
Doctors have said managers rush players back and don't fully listen to their advice. And I understand that doctors have said that. But for me, what you have to show me is a doctor with the inside knowledge on Saka's condition saying that Arteta is... For you to accuse Arteta of this, you have to have a source that has stated, I have looked at the scans of Saka's leg and it ain't ready, and the manager is ignoring our advice. You can't apply something Dr. A has said about manager B that has nothing to do with Arteta and say he's definitely doing that. You just think about that logic you're pushing here. You could apply that to anything in any manner of life, any manner of life. You can say, well, I know bad things happen in the family home. I know bad things happen to women at work. I therefore think Potsy as a manager is definitely doing that because other managers definitely do it. Well, show me evidence of it and then we'll call it out. You can't. I think there's a lot of mudslinging going on here. We're going to put it out that he's being rushed back. And then if and when there's a little knot, we can go, told you. I just think it's mudslinging, hoping some of it sticks, if I'm being honest. I've not seen a single report from any credible source saying Saka's nowhere near ready and they're forcing him back. So I don't know where the rhetoric is coming from.
And that's what I mean. We can only go by the experts. We can have opinions on it if you want, but the opinions, let's be real, we ain't experts. We don't know what this hamstring injury is going to be like coming back. We can go off the old injuries, but Michael Owen was years ago, and Michael Owen didn't have this surgery. Yeah, because it didn't exist back then.
Well, exactly. When Michael Owen's hamstrings went, that was still in the day and age where a cruciate ligament injury kept you out generally for 18 months to 2 years. We've already said, hang on, why is no one kicking off at Pep? Because Rodri's already back on grass training. We saw last season, maybe season before, Harvey Elliott broke his ankle in a game. He was back playing 3 months later. That used to be a 12 to 18 month period. The improvement in medical science is massive. And Ibby is right here. I remember reading the reports in December that said he'd be back in March. So if we go back to the original diagnosis, they said it would be around 3.5 to 4 months. It's been just over 4 months. Sorry, just over. It's been about 3 to 4 months. December to March, it's like 4 months, right? January, February, March. Yeah, January, February, March. We're going into the April period. That's 3.5 to 4 months. It's about what they said. Again, if somebody can show me a big solid, ironically, it'll be from The Athletic, who everyone says discredit for transfer news, but we'll take their word on this. But he's shown me a credible report that says he's being rushed back, and I'll have the conversation. I've just not seen anything that even suggests this personally, other than it's almost like, that's what I mean. It's like people are hoping. I find it very strange.
They're giving up. They've given up. The problem with this is that some Arsenal fans, they talk that they have zero chance against Real Madrid. They listen to Hassam a lot, and he says there is zero chance that Arsenal beat Real Madrid. Well, Saka's your best chance. And it will be for 4 months, basically, in mid-April. So you have to play Saka. And some managers play players because that means a lot if Arsenal can beat Real Madrid. And Dan said that the best chance for Arsenal is to have Saka playing in this game. And Arteta and the medical staff have done this. Instead of praising them, people don't slack them off and say that you're rushing them back.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make any sense to me.
I was looking here at the original headlines from the 27th of December when it was kind of announced how long he was out for. And what Arteta said in the press conference was he's going to be out for more than 2 months. Was the original statement was he'll be out for more than 2 months. So I don't know where this idea that his season was over even, but you've got it with Ahmad at Man United. It was initially diagnosed by the press that he'd be out until the end of the season, but he's had the surgery and he's making progress and he could be back before the end of the season. Now, of course, you get we shouldn't rush him back. but there's no evidence that he is being rushed back. My good friend of mine is a paramedic, and he was really struggling with work because he had a problem with his back, couldn't lift any. He had to be on like reduced duty because he couldn't lift anything. And obviously, being a paramedic, he got to lift people up. Actually, he's actually a paramedic. He's going to be at the Emirates actually tomorrow night. He does a lot of the football, and he had this new surgery on his back that's relatively new to the NHS. And they basically take a little piece of your spine out and they do something. He tried to explain it. I'm not medically, and he's like, I've had a bit of physio since, and he went, it's like I've never had a problem. Where prior, the same back problem he had with his discs, it said it was just years and years of agony. There was no real way of fixing it. So new things in medicine are invented all the time. Are the NHS irresponsible for letting him go back on full duty, even though it's like 5 weeks and he hasn't felt a twinge? How long do they stop him from going back to full duty at work? And by the way, his job is saving lives. So his back being perfect is more important than Saka's hamstring. How long do they leave it? Well, the medical experts have looked at it. He has assessed it and he's gone, I feel great. I just sometimes think there is a lot of people almost praying something bad happens so they can attack Arteta on. Let's look at some more comments here. Arteta had a completely overhaul, a dejected Arsenal team. Arsenal fans are so negative, reactive, and disrespectful to Arteta. Very hateful fans. Sad is what Bermuda Guna said here. I mean, Potsy's not. I just want to say that's why I saw your message as well. Potsy isn't. I think Potsy's really balanced when it comes to things because Potsy's already said Bermuda Guna on the show that he respects what Arteta and the club kind of built in terms of restructuring the club, getting them back into title races. I think what's fair as well, Bermuda Guna, and it actually goes into these other comments I'm going to put up here, like from JC. Says Terrier phase project argument works for 3 or 4 years, but if it's 6 or 7, then players are already starting to retire. Again, this is where we agree, and I think we have to have a broader conversation. I agree with you that you can't just keep kicking the can down the road with players, managers, sporting directors. What I do think continues forever is you always want and let's think of a different word for it so it doesn't trigger people, but there should always be a focus on maintaining yourselves one of the best teams in the world. You do that by continually buying players. Where I agree is you can't keep saying, if another 4 seasons go by and Arteta don't win anything, you can't keep saying, but it's a process for him, because I think you've got a team that's good enough to win. And that's, I suppose, JC, is my problem with this argument, is everybody now outside of Arsenal wants to disregard the need. Like there are Man United fans that go, I don't want us to go on and rebuild the club. Let's just start winning now. That isn't possible with where we were. And it's almost, that's why I don't like the conversation being reduced, because it means you create this monolith approach where every club should be judged by the same standards at every single moment. And that just isn't plausible. Terry, question, why are fans not questioning the lack of trophies after 5 years? It's not good enough. Listen, I think Arsenal fans are challenging it. Most of the Arsenal fans who come on the Football Terrace challenge it. I myself have said if Arsenal could land a better manager than Arteta, only based on my own subjectivity, I think he should be replaced. If they can't, I think you stay with him until you find that better manager.
That's fair.
The last 2 seasons, he should solely be judged on what he has or hasn't won. I have ring-fenced the rebuild and the project to get them back to that level. Now he's being judged on it. So that is happening. The only thing I find is that sometimes if you're not using hurty words and pejoratives, people don't think you're criticizing. That tends to be what it is. Dan, would you consider Berta? Sorry, I already done that one here. Thank you, Luke, for encouraging everybody to hit that like button for us today. He won't flop like Nunez because Gyokeres will score them chances Nunez misses.
Do you both think that would be a good signing, Gyokeres, for Arsenal?
Phenomenal, not only good.
Phenomenal, yeah.
Phenomenal.
I'm jealous. I'm very, very jealous. I feel a lot of people say Portuguese league. And me and KJ were talking about this this morning. I said the thing is, if you look at his international scoring record in the last few years and his European scoring record, it marries up. It's not as though he's doing it all in Portugal, but then plays in the Champions League or goes in on international duty and looks bang average. He's doing it at every level. He's got a great first touch. His hold-up play is good. He's got pace and power. He's played in England, which I think helps. Yeah, I think it's and by the way, I think it's a better deal than Isak money-wise. If Isak's 150 million and you get Gyokeres for 60 million, I don't think Isak is giving you double plus change the performances and goal. I don't think he's outperforming Gyokeres by more than double to warrant paying 150 million versus 60 million. You can then go out and get your Zubamendi's. You can go out and get your Cunhas, who has demanded this exit. You can go out and buy. What it does, it makes there less excuses for Arsenal not to improve this squad further. You drop 150 on Isak, could be very easy for KSE to go, that's it, we've done 150 million. We can't buy 3 or 4. You get Gyokeres, top-class striker. There is the money remaining to get that winger, to get that new attacking midfielder, to get that central midfielder. There are zero excuses for Arsenal. So I think it's good on every level. Brilliant player, and it stops there being any excuses about filling out the holes that remain in your squad. So yeah, phenomenal, mate. I really, really do think it's good. Ray here says, Gyokeres to Arsenal never shocked me because I think he was always good for Arsenal. If Arsenal sign him, this will get Arteta over the line. Do you think it could? Do you think it could do that? Do you think it could
really
be
hope so, right?
that gets you over the line?
I don't know, because I don't think Gyokeres is enough. I think he is a great start. I don't think he's the complete piece. I don't think, all right, everyone keep the state, like, Arsenal stay the same. Don't buy anyone else. Gyokeres is going to win us the league. We still need other positions as well, because we're going to lose players and we need to strengthen every season. But that is I think it's an excellent sign if it goes through. I really like him. I like everything about him.
Yeah, again,
if the club put this out there and at the end they go and get Sesko, I think people are just going to be so upset.
Yeah, look, I totally understand that. Look, I think Arsenal are going to be looking at a number of strikers because they're not the only ones who want Gyokeres. I still think Isak is probably their number one target. Šeško is there. I think it's fair that you kind of get this, but how can they be linked to 3 or 4? I think it's absolutely sensible that Arsenal are talking to and working on all those deals, because you don't know what's going to happen between now and the end of the season. Touching wood, it doesn't. One of them does their cruciate. The other one suddenly has Real Madrid come in for them. It changes the landscape. If you're only working on Isak and then something happens to that Isak deal and it can't go through, he decides to stay at Newcastle. If you're only working on Šeško and he does his cruciate, you don't want to be in July flat-footed because you've done no background work, no groundwork on any other deal. So expect Arsenal to be linked to 2 or 3 strikers and expect them to be having real conversations with those strikers. They'll just be telling each one that you're the number one target. That's what they'll do. They'll play them off against each other, which again, there'll be people online that will say, I don't understand how the Daily Mail can say this and then the Athletic say that. Well, that's because they'll all be getting fed information from different agents and different people. You'll also find that they'll also know that they're all number one. But Gyokeres people can now use this Arsenal link to help generate even more interest in him. So he's got multiple options in case. Imagine Arsenal in a hypothetical scenario get into a position where they can pick between Šeško, Isak, and Gyokeres because they all agree. Imagine you're Gyokeres and you go, right, let's not talk to anybody else now because Arsenal want me. And then they pick Isak or they pick Šeško. And then you're sitting there in the middle of July thinking, fuck, I've told every other club to piss off. They're also going to be talking to other clubs. That's why the transfer stories are not necessarily untrue just because a player is linked to 4 clubs or a club is linked to 4 strikers. That's how it actually works in reality. Because why would it not? How many jobs have you applied for, Dan, where it's the only job you've applied for? You don't do it.
Very true. Very true.
We don't do
very
it
true.
People. So I just think people have got to wise up on that one. I really, really do. This super chat here says Bruno at Madrid would be difficult for different Bruno at United. He plays every minute, plays consistently, and is always already done that one there, I think.
Yeah, we've done that one. Yeah.
Yes, I did do that super chat. I just forgot. By the way, Rahman, yes, Eid Mubarak to you as well, my friend. I hope everyone who's celebrating today has a brilliant day with their friends and family and enjoys being able to eat and drink during the day again as well. I always know that's a really important part of the day as well. And to all the young kids, I hope you get loads of money. I always remember the lads around me when I was living in London, the little kids. Like 10, 11 years old, walk around with like $1,000 of cash in their pocket from all the presents from family. So I hope you all get loads of money today and spend it on something that you all really want and like. Zane here says, don't have an issue with the word process, but once undertaken a process for 5 years, then it should yield continuous success, not just winning 1 Premier League and FA Cup after 5 years, then not challenging. Zane, I agree with your sentiment. I think this is why when you have these conversations with people, you have to, first of all, not argue over the words. And I think we all make this mistake. Let's break it down and go, when I think about a project and a process at a club, I'm not thinking about the manager. I'm thinking about the squad, the culture, the structure, and what the long-term plan of the football club is with or without that manager. If you're debating it and thinking about the manager, we're already going to struggle to come to a consensus because we're arguing about different things. So the first thing you have to do is work out what you both consider the process and project to be. Or what element you're focusing on. Because what you'll find is most agree with the manager element. He can't go on forever without winning. And then you'll find, it's just the language then that we interpret the word differently. But once you discover how you interpret things, you can come to at least an agreement to disagree, and it stops it being an ongoing debate all the time. And I think we've done that on this show quite well. We all sort of view it differently, but we understand each other's views. Look, I want to thank everyone who's tuned in this morning. Go and check out Judge Mo's channel right now. They are about to go live. Go and support them. Potsy, thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. for Straight Facts with LB, because the football is back. And I am so happy that the football is back. I want to thank everyone who's tuned in this morning, everyone who's hit the like button, everybody that has subscribed. Until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we will see you all again very, very soon. Peace.